Okay, so in this video, someone had commented they wanted to see a video or a deck profile of a deck based off of Lady of the Grail, because it's one of their favorite cards. So we're actually going to be looking at two different deck lists, one for Wizard and then one for Overlord, that uses Lady of the Grail. Lady of the Grail is a little harder to build around because it's not as... There's not a lot of cards that... There's actually not much cards that can support it. There was just one synergy I wanted to note that that you could use for a different deck, but of course it would be a completely different deck than the two that we'll be going over, which would use Atlas as well as Wonderverse, so it would be a pink-blue deck, and it's a very niche ability, but the reason is because like Lady of the Grail is a cosmic relic, so she doesn't have anything that synergizes necessarily with her attributes, so it's harder to utilize her once she's like in the graveyard or anything. But one of the synergies that you could use would be like use schrodinger. So if you have like say Lady of the Grail in your damage zone, you can use schrodinger to turn itself and anything in your damage into a military unit. And then you could use a card like Normandy Joint Forces to add a level 2 or lower military from your damage into your hand. So you could take Lady of the Grail into your hand using this if you changed it into a military. But again, that deck would focus mostly on military, and then usually what happens is when you build the deck, sometimes you end up find out that it's better to take out these smaller type of combos. So that's just something to note, but that's like the main one if you want to like fully concentrate on specifically her, is that you'd probably want to build a military type deck so that way you could abuse her in the damage zone. But today we'll be looking at two different versions. Again, one for Wizard and one for Overlord. Both of the deck lists will be in the description below, so they'll be noted as either Wizard or Overlord for that one, so that way you know which one. Each one plays fairly differently. The Wizard one is more defensive, which is the one we'll go over first, and the Overlord is actually a more offensive type of deck. But so we'll start with the Wizard. So again, Wizard, we start with 10 life, draw 3 cards at the start, and you're always ready 2 resources, and then again on your opponent's turn it has been errated where you will untap your ruler as well as 1 energy, so you always have 2 energy, which works out great for Lady of the Grail because it means you'll always be able to cast her if she's in your hand. And again, she'll be used more for in this deck as a defensive purpose type of card. So we'll start. Like I mentioned before, it has 4 Lady of the Grails. So her main ability in this one is that she has 2 abilities where when you're directly attacked, you can normal summon her from your hand to your defense zone. And then she has another ability that is, as long as she's in play, reduces all damage you take by 1. So again, this one, in this deck, she's mostly used as a defensive tool to drop into play. With 4 HP, she mostly will stop a pretty good amount of units, but it will mostly stop rulers that have like 3 attack or less, which would be great for her to survive. But a lot of rulers have usually like 4 attacks, so like Overlord is very common where it has 4 attacks that'll really go through her pretty easy. But then we'll go over some cards that you can use with her that can help. So the first couple cards we'll go over are actually dealing with the theme that Lady of the Grail is from, which is again, which is supposed to be like the King Arthur timeline. So you have like, so in this set we also had, from set 3 we had Space Lancelot. So Lancelot is one of the knights from the Round Table, so we're using Lancelot in this deck as kind of like a submatic theme for it. So this one again has charge shield and double attack, and when you play it, it gains a charge. So it's just a good double attacker, and again it fits mostly with Lady of the Grail being just thematic in terms of why it's in here. We also have 2 Space King Arthurs. So this is all the way from set 1. Again, this one is a little harder because his ability that you use once per game is a normal summon. It does mean you have to play 3 energy, meaning you usually will have to leave up 1 energy up every turn, which is usually not too hard, as long as you don't play Lancelot on your turn, because I believe Lancelot is the only unit in this deck that costs 3. Everything else costs 2 or less, so that way you always have that 1 energy open to use as a reaction if you need to play like Space King Arthur, because with Wizard being only 10 HP, you sometimes will get pretty low. And then him having double attack sometimes can be really useful for just if you need to play him just to like clear through some boards, because this deck has might have some problems clearing units with like big toughnesses, so like with 5 HP or more. And then for one of our legends, we have his Masashi. So this one is just on touchdown or overdrive, you get to destroy a unit. And then if you are ever like directly attacked by 2 life or less, because again our HP is low to begin with at 10, you can remove from your hand, and if you do, you can do 2 damage to your opponent. So like again, this one is not used as much, that ability, because we're not as aggressive as we could be with his, which is why it takes more advantage in the other deck we'll go over. And then we also have 4 Dash Jordan. So again, this is also just a very good reactive card. Again, where if we have 3 life or less, it'll cost 1, and it'll gain Sentinel Summon, which lets us summon on our opponent's turn. And then when it comes to play, we can deal 3 damage to something. So it can be used as just a plain blocker, and then maybe potentially kill another unit in the process to keep us alive. Next we have is 4 Mortana. So this one is going to be using Volnar. So the other deck is also going to be using a different attribute along with it. So this one is using Mortana mostly for its counter to draw a card. But also there's a chance that we will use her Master of Sorcery, which is this DR to make 1 card or 1 event cost 1 cheaper for every time we DR. Because the deck doesn't really DR as much. That ability won't come up too much, but it is an option. And then she just has like very decent stats should we play her. Next we have 4 Vamel. So this is just mostly a defense card that doesn't use up energy or resources. So again, you can DR2 to just prevent 2 damage, because again, with being low HP, sometimes we just need to stunt some attacks, so that way we can live just a little bit longer. Then we're running 4 Biocorp's Monkinator. So this is a concealment card from set 3, where you could normal summon it from your set zone, but then one of the big keys is that this gets special summoned, meaning you don't have to pay energy for it. But when you're directly attacked with your opponent's ruler, you can special summon this to your attack zone, and then your opponent's ruler will actually lose a strike. And then you can also destroy a field card, which actually could be relevant against like GG Armor or even Abyss decks that have the field spell that prevents your graveyard from being hit. So this card can just be very good. It also has 5 power, clearing power. The only problem is that it gets special to the attack zone, which is usually not too much of an issue, but it would have been way better if it could be summoned to the defense zone, so it could be used defensively as well. And then the last units we're using is 4 beastfolk barbarian. This one is just because it has 5 power, just to clear units that we can chip in damage with our ruler, because our ruler only has 2 attack. So that's why we're using this to kind of just push through. And then for our events, we are running 2 of Maximum Power Beam. So this card originally came out in set 2. And again, its main counter ability is to exhaust your opponent's ruler and all enemy units, which can be very good as a counter because it will essentially stop your opponent's attacks. And it is a resource-only card, so again, this is why the only one that can really run it is Wizard, since there's no discount on it. But essentially, when you do play it, again, you can use Mortana to kind of reduce the cost, and that will make it where you could pay like 3 or even less, depending how much you DR, if you have like a lot of resources to do it. But this card deals 8 damage among any number of units that you want, and then as well as 2 damage to your opponent. So again, it unfortunately has to be activated at the end of the turn, so it can't be really reactive, but it can also be good for just clearing the board away again, as well as dealing some chip damage to them. Next, we're running 2 high power phasers. So again, you could DR3 to make it cheaper, but with Wizard, because you untap itself and another energy, essentially you have the 2 resources to play it for free. And again, this one just deals 3 damage divided as you choose among a number of units. So again, it's just a defensive card to keep us alive. We're also running 1 Blaze Vortex. So this is the second legend we're running in our deck. So this one lets us destroy all of your opponent's front row units, at least in the attack zones. whenever you're attacked by an enemy unit. So this can be very good for, again, just defensively. And because it costs 2, again, Wizard is very good at keeping us with 2 power or 2 energy at the beginning of our opponent's turn. Next, we're also running 2 full charge ahead. So this 2 abilities, we'll mostly be using it would probably be for its 3 attack if we need to, so that way we can use our ruler to clear things, because with only 2 strike on our main ruler, it's not like it's any better than like one of our other units that just has 2 strike as well. So that's why with this card, it's mostly using for its 3 attacks, so we can use our ruler to kind of just like push through, or so it doesn't get like stopped by other things. Or you could even use it to destroy a field or a set card, you know, on your turn if you need to. Next, we're running for Space Cave, because then just very good for if you hit it in a counter, you can rest a unit or a ruler, as well as if you just use it because you drew it, you can use it to reduce 2 damage from an attack. And then we have 4 shields up, as well as 4 wall of shields. So basically they do the same thing for both Volnar and Wonderverse, where it just reduces an attack to 0. So mostly usually on a 3 strike or 2 strike if you really need to reduce those, just so that way we take less damage. And again, just to survive it's long enough so that we can just chip away at them slowly. And then that's actually it for the Wizard version of the Lady of the Grail deck. So then we'll actually just transition into the Overlord one, so just try to move that on top. And then again we have Overlord. So this one has a cost reduction, or it has a cost limit. So again, some of the deck choices are made because of the amount of space we have. And again, this deck runs for Lady of the Grail, just like the first one. Because again, however, in this deck, it's rather than using it on your opponent's turn to like use it as a blocker for your opponent, a lot of times we would actually play this card more aggressively, where we play it into our attack zone, and then we're utilizing that, reducing one, taking 1 as damage whenever you attack, because sometimes it means that they'll try to go after her, especially if they have like 1 strike units, because they won't be able to do any damage if she's on the field. So we have some stuff that will protect her, so that way we can, you know, so, but again, that's why we're moving her more aggressively in this version. In this deck, we have 2 sakuya-himes. So again, we're paying them for 1. So basically, it's just the 1 cost, draw 2. And then we're only running 2 because, again, of the cost limit. But again, it's just very good to have, you know, a pretty good body that can get through, as well as, you know, it draws us cards. Just like the first deck, we tried to keep this the sub-thematic theme in it. So we have 2 Space King Arthurs, and this one's a little bit easier to play with Overlord, since you just have to pay 1 to normal summon it for its ability. But we can also use it aggressively as an attacker if we do need to. In this one, we also have 3 Lancelots, again just a double attacker, and then again has charge shield, so it can be used to pressure our opponent. The next one we have is our 2 legends. So we have 1 Schrodinger's cat, as well as 1 Masashi. Schrodinger can actually be replaced if you don't have Schrodinger, just because, you know, of how hard it is to get, because you either have to like physically buy one, unless you have like a locals near you that you could play in. But if you need to, you could always replace Schrodinger with a 4th Lancelot, you know, again, in case you can't get one. But Schrodinger is, again, very good, just because it costs 1 to, you know, play on our opponent's turn, because it has to be normal summoned again when you get directly attacked. And then Masashi is just in here just because it's a very good card. But this one we can also use more. So again, if like it's a very close match where, you know, you and your opponent are both really low, this could probably win it for you in the end if you do end up like having it in your hand for a while. Next we have, so this is the first, so this one is going to be using the Yomaji in front, so the red side. So this one uses 4 nyudou, which gives all of your units +1 attack. So again, this makes like Arthur's hit for 7, which can kill pretty much any unit other than like the Cthulhu from X-Vader, as well as give Lancelot like 6 power, which is enough to kill, you know, like some of the bigger dragons. But then we're also using it because of its to exhaust an opponent's ruler. So again, it's a little bit defensive, but we can also play it, you know, to just boost our units. It also makes like, you know, like Lady of the Grail have 5 attack versus her 4, which is very good for clearing a lot of these high HP units. It also has 2 strike as a 1 cost, so it's also just very good for damaging our opponents. There's also a supernatural sub theme, so we're actually running 4 yobukos to enhance over those. And then there are times where you could actually enhance 5, or sorry, not enhance, DR5 for this to kill a level 3 unit. Usually it'll kill like Schrodinger's cat, or it could kill other things as well. But for this one, it can be just used as a good defender. It has breakthrough and charge shield as long as it has that enhance. And a lot of our zeros are pretty much all supernatural, so this one kind of just fits natural. And again, with like nyudou, it can be a 5 power, which again is just very good clearing. Like the last deck, we also still have 4 Biocorpse Monkinator, because again, just to reduce the strike when your opponent attacks, and then we can use it again to like hit our opponent back afterwards. And again, like one thing I forgot to mention with Monkinator is that like with this deck, because we're playing Lady of the Grail more aggressively, if we have like Lady of the Grail in play already, and then when you play Biocorpse, if your opponent has like say a 2-strike or a 3-strike ruler, what will happen is it'll be down to 2, and then Lady of the Grail will make it only 1 damage, so it reduces the damage quite a bit. Next we have 4 Joe of the Kamaitachi, again just a 0 cost, 5 power. And then we have 4 yuki-onna. Again, it's a supernatural, but it has the most toughness out of the other 4 powered ones. Unfortunately, Wonderverse still hasn't gotten its like vanilla 5 power card. Hopefully it'll get it at some point, and hopefully it'll still be a supernatural. And then we also have 3 dojis. Again, just another supernatural for power that we can use. For our events, we're running 4 Supernatural Citizens Act, because again, in Overlord, everything costs 1, so just playing this just makes us heal, and then by healing, we can live longer, so we can keep fighting longer, even though this deck is more aggressive. We're also running 4 the 2 paths, so this is mostly just for its counter, again, for its drawing ability. But if you're really into, like, if you are getting low on card advantage, you can use its second ability. Or if you're playing against, like, Legion or Highlander, where they have, like, the 20 CNTs, you could probably use it to try to, like, dig through your opponent's deck and get out a lot of their CNTs, especially for, again, like, Legion or Highlander, where they have, like, a base of 20 CNTs versus the normal 16. We're also running 4 the Spring of Grace, because, again, this card... essentially is for 1 cost, you look at the top 4 and you can take any 1 card from it that's not a legendary. So you can't take like Schrodinger or Masashi, but it lets you take anything else. Like if you want to take your Lady of the Grail or any card that you want to need at that time, you can use that to just dig through your deck for what you need. And lastly, we're using 2 hashtag SMH. This again is just to have the cost reduction, so that way we have enough just to run extra units. Again, you could probably cut this and then reduce like maybe the sakuya-himes if you find you don't really need her for it, or if you want to cut like other units in the deck. But this in here is not as much of a bad thing. So again, even though we're losing it as a card, like if when we draw it, that's actually why we're running the 2 paths in this version versus the other version, because it is a Wonderverse card, so it could be in both decks. But this one you might use it for a second ability to draw, because you might have like no cards, because again, like with this, we're fine losing it, so it's not too much of an issue. But that's actually it for the 2 decks for the based off of Lady of the Grail. Again, if there are the 2 deck lists will be in the description below, separated by the they'll be distinguished by the ruler name at the top of the title for it. So you can see the 2 different deck lists. And if there's any questions, or again, if you want to see other like deck lists based on certain cards or even archetypes, just let me know, and then I'll do my best to try to push one out for you. Okay? So thank you for watching, and then I'll see you guys in the next one.